Jupiter, Florida, September 2011. Police are called to a house to respond to the shooting of a man.
You could see blood strewn across the floor. You could see a shattered shower door. So the bullets had gone through the shower door.
It quickly becomes clear this wasn't a suicide, but a suspicious death.
If you're going to shoot yourself, you're probably not going to do it 9 times.
The victim is a man named Donna Horwitz.
It became apparent very quickly that Mr. Horwitz had not killed himself.
A barrel of one of those guns was put in Lanny's mouth, and the trigger was pulled because of all the burn inside the mouth of the lips and the gum. That is an execution shot.
Police narrow down their suspects and begin to build a comprehensive case.
You have to look for all the little pieces of the puzzle. Do things add up?
I'm sure most people driving by these multi-million-dollar homes probably don't assume that it's armed like a fort, a military fort, but in this case it was. I mean, there were 26 guns in this house.
This is the story of Donna Horwitz, his complicated life, and how he died so violently.
For someone else to do that to a person, the amount of bullets that were fired at Lanny says that there was some potential pent-up emotion that just burst out.
September 30th, 2011. It's a Friday in Admiral's Cove, an exclusive gated community in the northern suburbs of West Palm Beach. It's a place known for its wealth and exclusivity, certainly not violence of any kind.
Jupiter, I think, is a very desirable place to live and enjoys a good reputation, I think, overall.
Golf Magazine ranked Jupiter as the golf capital of the world because of the amount of high-class golfers who live in the community. You've got Tiger Woods and Brooks Koepka and all these folks. Jack Nicklaus lived here as well. So it's a place where the rich and famous come and they live and they feel safe here.
Admiral's Cove is one of Jupiter's most exclusive communities.
Admiral's Cove is a very affluent neighborhood. It's a very high-end monetary neighborhood. You have a lot of wealthy people that live in there.
It's the wealthy playground, or at least the people that, like to show or put on the wealth. Expensive cars, expensive houses, beautiful properties. Most people have boats. It's just an affluent area.
Lanny and Donna Horwitz, along with their adult son, Radley, reside at one of the high-end residences on Mariner Drive. What happens next is a mystery for the police. The early morning calm is disturbed by gunfire. As the house alarm blares, Radley stays in his room, disoriented and defenseless, not knowing if the shooter will make him the next target. When the shooting stops, Radley runs to his father's room. What he sees is horrifying. Security guard Luis Garcia is first on the scene. He alerts the police, who respond immediately.
The alarm had triggered not a burglar alarm or break-in, but it was actually a glass break sensor. And the glass break sensors, what they alert to are any high-pitched frequencies. It's not necessarily glass breaking. It could be, in this case, a gunshot through glass, any type of pinging. Sometimes you drop things on the floor in the kitchen, it could set the glass break off. So that's what he responded to, essentially.
The first person to meet Radley Horwitz is security guard Luis Garcia,
who was able to direct him to the bathroom. Donna Horwitz was present as well, but he observed Lanny Horwitz on the bathroom floor, face down, with blood near his head, blood near his body, blood coming out, and a firearm in his hand. At that moment, he doesn't know what happened, just sees the immense amount of blood and that there is a person down on the floor and appears to be unresponsive even from getting closer, just is not moving.
He took the gun and in his word, he skittered it across the tiles, kind of gave it a shove out the door, and he started to roll Mr. Horwitz over. He said, I could tell right away he was dead, he was deceased. And he said, I kind of rolled him back a little bit to where I thought he was in his position, and then he backed out, and that's when he was calling us as well.
Luis Garcia tells police operators what he thinks has happened.
There was a conversation between Garcia and the 911 dispatcher, and in that conversation, it's postulated by Garcia that it was a suicide because of the placement of the gun when they were able to get on site and look at it. And he talks at length with the dispatcher with the assumption that it was a suicide.
Police arrive at Mariner Drive and start to get a sense of what has really happened. It's a bloody scene.
Blood spattered everywhere. There's a pool of blood around Mr. Horwitz. There's glass embedded all over his body.
It wasn't immediately apparent at just glancing at him, but upon a closer look, they can see that he's been shot more than once, and the number of shots exceeded that small handgun, and they see the second handgun on the dresser in the master bedroom.
If it's a suicide, then one can't shoot themselves through a glass window. So if he's committing a suicide and he's standing inside the shower, well, then there should be no shots traveling from inside to out. If he's standing outside, then the shower door shouldn't be open. So there's really no getting around the fact that, and there was no blood spatter, no pattern cast off on the towel at all. So that basically eliminated this idea of a suicide.
It soon becomes clear where the suicide theory has come from. Luis Garcia has tried to elicit some information from Donna Horwitz to find out what has happened.
Mrs. Horwitz is standing there, basically not really responding to him. She's in pajamas, and he said, words to the effect of what's happening, what's going on. And she said words to the effect to him of, he's been saying he was going to do this. Mr. Garcia took that to probably mean that Mr. Horwitz had killed himself. And keeping in mind that community, that's the kind of, even that would be unexpected, but it would certainly be much more expected than a homicide.
Police seal off the house and establish a crime scene.
The first line of business would have been first responders to clear the residence, make safe so that the emergency medical technicians could enter and assess the situation. Following that, the house would have been cleared, crime scene tape would have been erected, and then given the deceased individual and most likely a gunshot victim, detectives would have been sent in to begin their investigation to determine how this person was shot.
Eric Frank assesses the crime scene.
I need to know what do we have so far, because I need to know where the crime scene is, if I need to adjust the crime scene, expand it, contract it, whatever it may be, and get the basic information from the initial supervisor who's on scene, and then directly from the responding officers to find out what information they have that it can pass on to me.
It quickly becomes evident that whatever happened did not involve a home invasion by third-party suspects.
Remember that the alarm went off for a glass break. It didn't go off for a door opened, a window opened, and there was no other glass break inside the house. Further, the house was, in very, there was no indication that anything had been broken, kicked in. It wasn't, there was no evidence of a struggle. So this idea that there was another person that had somehow gotten into the house unlawfully, it just was not supported by the evidence, by any evidence.
Everything was secure, and the alarm had not been tripped until the glass shattered from the first shot. So we knew that whatever had happened in the house with just Radley and Donna and Lanny. And my first thought was, this is somebody that's just was in a rage.
The officers advised that the decedent was in the master bedroom, And out in front of the residence, they had his son, Bradley. I briefly introduced myself to them. And then, as a proper investigation needs to be done, now that I have the basic information, we then need to take a look at the scene independently of what's been told to kind of get an eye view of what occurred.
It was a very violent end. You could see blood strewn across the floor. You could see a shattered shower door. So the bullets had gone through the shower door.
We know that he was upright for a bit of time because we could see it ourselves because there was movement in the bathroom. There was an old-fashioned princess phone on the bathroom wall with this extraordinarily long cord, and that phone was off the hook. There was blood on the wall set, and the actual handset was underneath Mr. Horwitz, some feet away from that wall, which indicated that he had attempted, in all likelihood, to call for help after he had suffered the first shots in the shower, then collapses, and more shots occur once he's down.
I absolutely believe he was trying to call for help because he had the phone off. It had been pulled off in his hand, and it was on the floor. The cord was kind of wrapped with him as well. So I do believe he tried to call for help.
The firearms at the scene are key evidence and crucial to the investigation.
They found quite a bit of evidence. 2 5-shot his and her Smith & Wesson revolvers in 2 different locations, which became very important to the analysis of the case. One of the revolvers was actually the one that Luis Garcia found in the hand of Lanny Horwitz that was ultimately moved to just outside the bathroom door by the time law enforcement photographed it. The other revolver was actually within its holster on the dresser. And initially, there was no way to tell how many shots were fired, how many guns were involved. What we came to realize is that both of those guns had been fired completely through. So all 5 cartridges in both weapons had been discharged, which indicates that whoever did this certainly wanted Mr. Horwitz to die, emptying 2 revolvers into him.
So then the real work begins with the crime scene, where they began to collect the items that they've now photographed and individually bag them and keep a log and do their diagrams.
The investigators are also getting a sense of how the deceased passed away.
This person was inside in the shower when he was shot, and then tries to escape, tries to save himself, acting maybe irrationally, opens the shower door, is most likely shot several more times before he collapses on the ground. Whether or not he grabbed that phone intentionally or was just sort of scrambling, given the proximity of the phone to the shower, that would be speculation.
There are 3 people in the house, and one of them is dead. But who pulled the trigger? Lanny Horwitz is dead on the floor of his mansion. He has died from 9 gunshot wounds, fired at close range. Police begin to focus on the 3 people in the house at Admiral's Cove, and soon discover some very complicated relationships. Lanny and Donna first meet in the 1960s in their home city of Buffalo. It's clear that Lanny lives a successful and glamorous lifestyle, and his relationship with Donna Carnevale only adds to that perception.
Donna Horwitz met Lanny Horwitz at a very young age. She was 14 years old, and she met Lanny. They originally were both from Buffalo, and that's where she met. They started their relationship very young and got married.
By all accounts, they were, very happy, younger in life. I mean, you see these photos of them together, they look like a perfect pair. Lanny wasn't an attorney, a practicing attorney, he had his law degree, but he made most of his money in real estate. So he was kind of a jet-setting kind of guy, had a father who was a successful businessman who helped him get into the real estate business at a young age, and he learned a tremendous amount about that from his dad. And in a lot of ways, a great American success story. I mean, he was able to build a good business and make a good living for himself and his wife and son.
This happy family, and they appeared to be affluent. They did things that affluent people did. I mean, at one point, Lanny was certainly making very good money doing real estate deals.
Donna was not a country bumpkin by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, she came from her own family that had some privilege. I mean, they weren't the Rockefellers, but her father was a successful athlete who had a long career in baseball and actually played professional basketball for a year, so he was a very good athlete.
And so because of that, she also, in addition to Lanny's success, she herself had her own money and her own source of money that they would use.
The Horwitz family had a glamorous lifestyle.
They were able to do whatever they wanted. They could travel the world. They had boats and beautiful cars and were able to live a lifestyle that most of us can only dream about.
They had a child named Radley Horwitz. That was their one child. And they continued being married for a very long time. They got divorced. Then they got remarried and divorced again. And at the time that this was occurring, they had reconciled to a point that they were living in a home together.
They were together for a long time, over 30 years their first marriage lasted, which a lot of people would say is a big success. And then the marriage broke up. There were apparently some infidelities and some other issues between them. And but it's one of those things, I guess, when you meet somebody in high school and you're kind of Buffalo kids at heart, and even though they both had access to a lot of money and they'd go anywhere they wanted and probably could meet a lot of different people, for whatever reason, they kept getting drawn back to each other.
At the crime scene, investigators are narrowing down the possibilities surrounding the death of Lanny Horwitz. Investigators try to speak with Donna.
They ask her if everything is all right. And her response to that is placing her fingers in her ear and mouthing. And so at this point in time, police weren't asking her any question about what happened. They didn't even know that it was a murder. And she just starts placing her fingers in her ear and mouthing.
She was indicated that she couldn't hear. That becomes relevant because if a person is standing in a fully porcelained bathroom and 10 gunshots go off, that would explain, the hearing loss. That would explain putting her hands in her ears.
There's many reasons why people don't talk. Initially, could it be shock? It could be. Could be that they have something to hide. Sure. There's many reasons why people don't talk.
Lanny and Donna's 37-year-old son, Radley, is forthcoming with information.
We went into my vehicle. Radley absolutely agreed to speak to us on scene. He wanted to give us talk and have his side of what happened that he's telling us. So we go inside my vehicle and we start a recorded interview, myself, Detective Hozak, and Radley. And he basically gives us a little information about what occurred, what he saw.
Radley cooperates with them, explains what he heard and that he was sleeping and he woke up to gunshots and then dry firing, a gun firing without any ammunition in it.
He was very familiar with guns, and he said, I didn't fire a gun. And, understandably, in his mind, he has no idea what led to this.
Police have cause to suspect Radley in the death of his father. His relationship with firearms goes back years.
Radley used to be in the firearms business. He had some run-in with the federal side of law enforcement, so he was no longer allowed to possess firearms, ammunition, or anything like that.
He was charged by the federal government for gun sales, so that he was doing things, selling a gun without the proper procedure, and he was convicted of that.
You find a large amount of weaponry and a large amount of ammunition, and certainly, you want to take a look at who may be the owner or who may be the operator of those things.
We found a couple large bunker-type Connex bins that were filled with long guns, handguns. There was some ammunition there. In the closet downstairs in the hallway in the back of the closet, there were tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition in the ammunition cases and all that. Which initially, when you're finding all this, the normal person does not have that much ammunition.
I'm sure most people driving by these multi-million-dollar homes probably don't assume that it's armed like a fort, a military fort, but in this case it was. I mean, there were 26 guns in this house, and the family certainly had an interest in weaponry.
This is Florida. It is a gun state. So we're never surprised when we find firearms and ammunition in someone's home. In large volumes like that, not quite as normal, but we do find them often down here. He would be someone I would consider to be very knowledgeable about firearms as well. So sometimes people say, I heard gunshots, and it was just a hammer drill or someone dropped something. In this case, he's saying it's 2 gunshots, so we take that and know that it's more than likely it was 2 gunshots.
Radley also tells investigators what he witnessed.
He goes out, he hears his mother screaming, he goes to their bedroom door area, from the living room to their bedroom door, and he can see into the bathroom, he can see his father on the floor, and he then goes and turns the alarm off.
It's now clear Radley is an unlikely suspect in the murder. The only other person in the house that night was Lanny's wife, Donna. In a house on Mariner Drive, police are assisting the medical examiner with the remains of Lanny Horwitz.
We assist the medical examiner in moving Lanny from that bloody room out onto sheets that were laid out and onto those sheets. And once there, that's when the medical examiner, with his examinations, that's when we really started seeing the physical injuries that had occurred to Lanny. The obvious multiple gunshot wounds that he had sustained in the struggle that occurred in that bathroom. So now it just fortified that this was in fact a homicide, that there are so many bullet wounds and injuries to him.
It's clear that Lanny Horwitz was shot in the shower while moving. There are multiple gunshots to him, but then it's clear that at some point he falls to the ground, and he is then shot additionally in the mouth, and it is a closer contact than the other shots, and that he can tell by the injuries to the mouth, and then also in correlation with the photographs from the crime scene of the defects on the tile, that is what occurred.
And what this told me is that the shooter had stood directly over him and shot straight down through Lanny, at Lanny. The bullets went through Lanny and hit that tile. So this, again, even more fortified that this in fact was a homicide, that this was an execution of Lanny Horwitz.
I mean, that's pretty next level anger.
The shooting impacts others living in this wealthy community.
You can only imagine the neighbor's shock. You have to just think about it. I mean, you live in this opulent place, you think you're protected, and then it turns out that you're not. Yeah, you're not totally safe. It must have been a shattering feeling and recognition for them that anything can happen to anyone at any time.
Detectives now quiz Radley again about the circumstances of the incident.
When we talk with anyone, we're not just going to say, okay, what happened here? We want a little background. We want to know what the background story is in any situation. And that's what we did in this case. When Radley, he told us about their marriage. They've been married and divorced twice before to each other. Everything appeared okay. He did not think that his father was depressed or suicidal. Dad was in the process of a business deal overseas that was supposed to be a great deal. So he said he was very surprised, basically, if there was anything that indicated suicide in this case.
Radley was very honest about how his parents had a very up and down relationship, that it would be constant, that Lanny would be mean or cruel to Donna Horwitz, and to the point of the fact that Donna really loved Lanny and really wanted him to be nicer, to have the better relationship. That's definitely something that Radley spoke to of or alluded to.
Radley is able to tell police what happened.
He gets there and he sees his father on the floor in a pool of blood. He sees the shattered glass. He sees the scene, and he sees his mother, not holding a weapon according to him, but sees his mother, and she's just repeating a phrase, "He's so awful, he's so awful."
This is where Bradley now is knowing that his mom shot his dad.
It appears Donna and Lanny were arguing over the future of their relationship.
Bradley told us that he remembers there'd be sort of yelling, loud screaming back and forth between his parents, and believe loud slamming on the doors or some of those things. So, you know, Radley ultimately went to bed and then was woken up by the gunshots, but Radley's account is that it sort of came to a head that night, and that was evidenced by the luggage on the floor, that Lanny was packing his things. He had his to-go bag ready. So in this moment of, okay, we're going out and we're gonna have dinner the night before, you know, Radley sort of took it as, okay, maybe mom and dad are gonna get back together. Donna certainly took it as, hey, we're gonna get back together. But then now the rug gets pulled out from under everybody.
3 pieces of luggage. There was a suitcase and a Louis Vuitton duffel, as well as a Louis Vuitton garment bag. And so it was clear that someone was going on a trip. Those were packed and full of clothing.
It appears there have been lots of problems in the house and in the relationship. Police get their hands on Donna's personal journal. The journal reveals what has been going on in the relationship between Donna and Lanny.
That was the window to her psyche when we examined it.
And once the detectives were able to look through it, you could kind of see that this had been a timeline, some sort of guide as to how her recent relationship with Lanny had progressed, so that it spoke to, the journal first spoke to about the rekindling, that Lanny has asked for us to try again, to give it another shot, and so she seems very excited.
It appears Lanny's actions also have a financial imperative.
He needs to borrow this amount of money in order to keep the home, because the home was under multiple mortgages at the time, and so he asked for $200,000 in order to keep their family home, and he called it their family home, implying that they could still be together and live together.
Well, Lanny was in trouble at that point. That was sort of a low point for him. He was not, certainly not a millionaire at that point. He was not making the type of money that he was used to. Lanny was sort of, you know, a wheeler dealer, always looking for the next big thing. And there was some property. He felt like he may have had this next big thing.
It appears Donna has the cash Lanny needs.
In order to maintain that lifestyle, in order to float the family, you know, he did solicit from Donna a large amount of cash. Now, Donna had, she had some family money, and she had actually gotten the money from her family in order to give to Lanny. And in Donna's mind, this was the two of them getting back together, because I do believe that, I mean, Donna truly loved Lanny, and that was exhibited in a lot of the family photos and what we hear from Radley about, you know, their life early on. I think Donna really adored Lanny.
Donna was prepared to do anything to keep Lanny.
She wanted the relationship with Lanny more than anything, and you could read that in her diary. And the time she was happy, it was Lambo, and there were very happy thoughts. And then she would sort of change when things went bad. Because she would date the book, and she would say, "Oh, Mr. Meany with Fran all day today."
Police now discover another name in the story.
You see references to a Francine Tice, who she called Fran, and so there are multiple commentary throughout. There's one where she details her birthday celebration and then Francine's birthday celebration. Both were on the day planner and both what they did. And so for Donna's birthday, there were hot dogs at the house. And for Francine's birthday, he had taken her to Capitol Grill or another, you know, expensive steakhouse to celebrate her birthday. So even without speaking as to the hatred of Francine, you could see it in how she detailed different activities that they would do.
You could see that she was a tortured soul. You know, this man who she really loved and wanted to be with, but when she when she called him Mr. Meanie, we thought that was very impactful, because it's easier to call somebody an a-hole. It's easier to just, like, you know, to call somebody a cheap name, but to call him Mr. Meanie, that's a deep cut. That's a wounded individual. That's a tortured individual.
Francine appears to be the target of Donna's attacks because of her relationship with Lanny.
They've been going out to dinners, they've been seeing a lot of each other, and Donna was expressing anger or jealousy, the fact that he was spending more time with Francine than he was with Donna.
Francine Tice is the one who's going on these trips, the one who is getting these fancy dinners, who the one is getting all of the quality time with Lanny. And I think that it is clear that she was envious of that in her little notations about not what she did that day, but what Lanny did with Francine that day. The different activity that Lanny and Francine did that day was always notated, and that speaks to the envy that she had of their relationship.
And she was very, very hurt by his constant, you know, the marriage divorce, and that bore out in a lot of the things that we read in the diary about some of the things that she said, some of the things that she called him. It was very, very illustrative of, you know, this pain she felt and the love that she had for this man.
It looks like the matter was coming to a crescendo as Lanny and Francine were getting ready to take a trip together.
Lanny Horwitz was going on a trip that weekend and was packed to go with Francine Tice.
The relationship could have been completely platonic, but in Donna's mind, it wasn't.
She did not want him to go on this trip, did not want him to be socializing with Francine, and there was an argument over the fact that he was going on the trip.
He also told Donna that she had to leave the house. She was getting kicked out by the time he came back from the trip. Now think about it from Donna's perspective. This is someone who has been his life partner for decades, since the Johnson administration, and now is being told that she's out on the street. And the bigger indignity of it all is the fact that she's the reason why he's still in the house.
The next question appears to have been a simple one for Radley to answer.
We would have asked him straightforward, do you believe that your mother killed your father? He believed she did, yes.
On October 6th, Donna is charged with first-degree murder with a firearm. Police are now convinced she had the opportunity and the motive: jealousy.
We just needed that one good thing, that one supporting information that supported all the physical evidence, the forensic evidence, and the diary, everything that we had found on scene. And having that final conversation with Radley was pretty much what that final piece of the puzzle that we wanted. It filled in those little things that we needed to see. At that point in time, as Radley was already leaving the police department, we already had Donna under surveillance. We had the residences under surveillance of where she was located, and the call was made, put her in custody at this point.
In custody and charged with the murder of her husband, Donna Horwitz has plenty of time to consider her future.
You can see from the mugshot that was taken of Donna the night she was arrested. I mean, you can only imagine what's going through her head. You can just look at her physically. She had been through the ringer that week. Maybe she was wrapped with internal guilt. Maybe she was wrapped with fear. You don't know. Can't get in her mind. But just look at the picture. Just look at her face. Look at her hair. Look at the way she looks. That's somebody who's going through absolute hell on earth.
Radley is called to testify against his mother at the trial, which begins January 2013.
It's something that had to be done. He's an essential witness to the case, what he hears, the fact that he is in the home. For prosecution to occur, we have to establish who was in the home, what happened, and so Radley is essential. For Radley, I think it was a very emotionally tolling experience to have to testify in a case where his mother is being charged with first-degree murder.
Oftentimes in criminal proceedings, and especially a high-profile criminal case, defense attorneys, defense counsel will have some gamesmanship. That's what lawyers do on both sides. And there's no doubt, Donna's a person of means, a very attractive person. You just look at her physical appearance during the trial, and there had to have been a decision made by defense counsel. At least you would assume there was a decision made by defense counsel to try to play up the fact that she was older than she looked, that there was no way she could have committed a violent crime. This was a grandmother. Look at her. She's got gray hair. She's old. She's not particularly big. Is this a person who could murder her husband in cold blood, shoot him 9 times and shoot him in the mouth after he was dead? Probably not. At least that was what they were trying to sell the jury.
But the trial takes a peculiar twist for Radley Horwitz.
It's your mother who's being accused of murdering someone. I mean, yes, it's your father, but it's also your mother being accused of a violent crime. Anyone who's a human being would have some empathy for that, which is why it was even more shocking when defense counsel changed their strategy, or at least unleashed their strategy to Radley. He was unknowing, and they started to blame him for the murder. They started to plant seeds that perhaps it was him. Maybe he hired a hitman. Maybe he did it. He had all these reasons why he could have done it, alluding to the amount of money that he would theoretically inherit in the case of his father's death. And his mother, that was her attorneys, she was paying him, signed off on that strategy, and certainly didn't stop it.
To be essentially accused by what he felt was the defendant. I mean, it was the defense team and it was their strategy, but I mean, it hurt Radley very deeply that his mother would permit such a defense.
Everything that we found shows that there was no one who came from outside, no assassin, because that was brought up at one point that there was a hitman that was hired, and that by Radley to take out his dad for insurance money. None of that ever rang true. None of that was ever able to show up to any fruition that this is exactly what happened.
You know, Radley had no motivation at all to do this. The defense would try to argue that Radley was in it for the money. Radley was going to be the sole heir to everything, you know, from Donna's family, from her father to Donna. Everything was going to Radley, particularly if the two got divorced. I mean, he's the sole heir. And, you know, at that time, you know, the defense argued that Radley was sort of down and out, and that's why he was living at home. But being down and out in Admiral's Cove is not a bad place to be down and out. So Radley was living like a king.
Radley took a lie detector test, and apparently the police were satisfied with the results they got from that. There was no physical evidence tying him to the guns, for example. There was no powder residue on him. He didn't have any blood on him. They were able to find the earplugs, orange earplugs, by the side of his bed, showing that he had them in that night and keeping with his story. So the police had less reason to suspect Radley because he was cooperating. He was, to them, seeming to tell the truth according to a lie detector test, and was much more forthcoming than his mother was.
If the defense wanted to characterize him as the murderer, well, you know, there was a cache of weapons at his disposal that he could have used. And you know, the person that kills Lanny, in this case Donna Horwitz, uses 2 5-shot revolvers. It's, you know, it's a small caliber weapon. It was a little bit significant because they were his and hers airweight revolvers, so there are some significance behind that. And then the location of the body. I mean, he shot in the shower. It's the unlikely place for, if Radley was looking to shoot his father, you know, walking in while he's taking a shower with Donna Horwitz laying in the bed right there watching him is really not the ideal situation. So the placement of the body, the location of the crime scene, the fact that 2 5-shot revolvers were used, just it screamed Donna, not Radley.
That diary was enough information to make the motive fit for Donna. Everything else had been conjecture for the most part. It had been her son saying that they were unhappy. But when you could read it in black and white, you could read her notes, you could see the fixation she had with this other woman. The fact that she was calling her husband Mr. Meanie, this childlike language. That is the type of evidence that is difficult to discredit as a defense counsel.
We firmly believe every case that we prosecute and believe the evidence supports the argument that we just provided to the jury and why the person should be found guilty. We want justice for Radley to be vindicated. We want justice for the community to know that this person was held accountable. So you're always on pins and needles in that moment. There's just a lot going on, a lot of emotion.
On June 12, 2017, Donna Horwitz was sentenced to 32 years in Lowell Correctional Facility for the murder of Lanny Horwitz. It's highly likely she'll spend the rest of her life behind bars.
I think that Donna was in a fury. She was angry, and she had been in a relationship with Lanny for the majority of her life, and he had been cruel to her over and over again about the fact that she was constantly wanting this love and support that he was not giving her. They've been married, divorced, remarried, divorced, and then he uses her to get the money to help assist the mortgages, and he doesn't stop his relationship with Francine Tice, and he continues to it. So he is outright ignoring her feelings, and she is envious of what Francine Tice has with him. These fancy dinners, these trips, and all of these positive things that a person would look to in a normal, healthy relationship, all the positives that she is not getting, and she is just getting the mean side of Lanny, the Mr. Meanie who's not considerate of her feelings.
Why not just walk away? But maybe at that point she had just had enough and walking away wasn't an option.
So, does the trial provide a resolution for the Horwitz family?
There's no way that justice could be had. Some could argue what the injustice is, but from the narrow definition of a murder, how do you ever get justice back from that? It's impossible. You look at the aggrieved parties. You look at Radley. How can he ever receive justice? His father's dead. His mother threw him under the bus and allowed her defense attorneys to claim he was a murderer. How do you ever go back from that? There's no way. There's no justice that can be had there. His whole existence has been shattered. For his family, it's shattered. You have a whole family that no longer have grandparents. He doesn't have parents. Friends who are without their companionship. There can be no real justice, I don't think.